There we go. Continuing where we left off a couple weeks ago, chapter 6. 1. There are 3 categories of unintentional killers. 2. There is a person who kills unintentionally without at all knowing that this will be the consequence of his actions. Concerning such a person, Exodus 21:13 says, who did not lay an ambush. The law applying to such a person is that he should be exiled to a city of refuge, as we have explained in the previous chapter. 3. There is a person who kills unintentionally, whose acts resemble those caused by forces beyond his control, i.e. that the death will be caused by an extraordinary phenomenon that does not commonly occur. Such a person is not liable to be exiled, and if he is slain by the blood redeemer should be executed for killing him. 4. There is a person who kills unintentionally, whose acts resemble those who willfully perpetrated. For example, they involve negligence, or that care should have been taken with regard to a certain factor, and it was not. Such a person is not sentenced to exile because his sin is very severe and exile cannot bring him atonement, nor do the cities of refuge serve as a haven for him, for they serve as a haven only for those obligated to be exiled. Therefore, if the blood redeemer finds this killer anywhere and slays him, he is not liable. 5. What should a person do? Sin and protect himself from the blood redeemer. Similarly, if the blood redeemer slays any of the murderers whose acts were observed by only one witness or who were not given a warning or the like, the blood redeemer is not liable for execution. Killing such individuals should not be considered more severe than killing a person who killed unintentionally. 6. What does the above imply? When a person throws a stone into the public domain and it causes death, or he tears down his wall in the public domain and a stone falls and causes death, whether he tears down the wall during the day or during the night, he is considered to be close to having acted intentionally. A city of refuge does not serve as a haven for him, for he should have checked the surroundings and then thrown the stone or torn down the wall. 7. The following rules apply if a person tears down a wall into a garbage dump at night. If it is likely that people are there, he is considered to be close to having acted intentionally, and a city of refuge does not serve as a haven for him. If people are never found there, the death is considered close to being caused by forces beyond his control, and he is not liable for exile. 8. Different rules apply if people would use a garbage dump to relieve themselves at night, but it would not use it for this purpose during the daytime. If it happened that a person sat there during the day and he was killed by a stone that came from a person tearing down his wall, the person who torn down his wall should be exiled. If after the stone began to fall, the person came and sat down and the stone struck him and caused his death, the person who tore down his wall is not liable to be exiled. Similarly, if a person threw a stone into the public domain and after the stone left his hand, the victim struck his head out from a window and was struck by it, the person who threw the stone is not liable for exile. This is derived from Deuteronomy 19:5, which states, the iron slips from the wood and finds his fellow. This excludes an instance when the victim causes himself to be found by the iron or the object that causes death. 10. When a person who hates the victim kills unintentionally, the city of refuge does not serve as a haven for him. This is implied by Numbers 35:23, which states that a person who is exiled is not the victim's enemy. We operate under the presumption that one who is an enemy is close to having acted willfully. Who is considered to be an enemy? A person who did not speak to the victim for at least 3 days because of animosity. Similarly, all the following individuals are considered close to having acted willfully, and a city of refuge does not serve as a haven for them. A person who entered an intersection holding an open knife in his hand without realizing that the victim was approaching from the other side and unintentionally stabbed him, causing his death. B, a person who unintentionally pushed a colleague to his death with his body, but not with his hands. C, a person who intended to throw a stone that could kill 2 cubits and instead threw it 4. D, a person who thought that was permitted to kill. E, a person who intended to kill one person and instead killed another. This applies even if he intended to kill a Gentile or an animal and instead killed a Jew. 11. When a person enters a courtyard of a homeowner without permission and the homeowner kills him unintentionally, the homeowner is not liable to be exiled, as can be inferred from Deuteronomy 19:5, which, when describing a person who must be exiled, speaks of one who encounters his colleague in the forest. Our sages commented, a forest is a place that the victim has the right to enter. Similarly, in all such places, and only in such places, is a killer liable to be exiled. Therefore, if a person enters a carpenter's shop without permission and a block of wood flies forth and strikes him in the face and kills him, and he dies, the carpenter is not liable to be exiled. If he entered with permission, the carpenter should be exiled. 12. When a person was lifting a barrel with a pulley to bring it up to a roof and the rope broke, causing it to fall on a colleague, or a person was climbing up a ladder and fell on a colleague and killed him, the person who caused the death is not liable to be exiled. This is considered to be something beyond his control, for this is not something that is likely to happen, but is rather an extraordinary occurrence. If, by contrast, a person was lowering a barrel with a rope and it fell on a colleague and killed him, he was descending on a ladder and fell on a colleague, or he was shining with a polisher and it fell on a colleague and killed him, the person responsible should be exiled. This is derived from Numbers 35:23, which states, "And it fell upon him, and he died," implying that the article must descend in an ordinary manner. An object that descends frequently causes damage. Indeed, it is likely that this will happen, for the nature of a heavy object is to descend downward speedily. Therefore, if the person did not hurry and act appropriately and properly while the object descended, he is responsible and should be exiled. The same applies in other analogous situations. 13. The following rules apply when a butcher was cutting meat and lifted his hands backward while holding a cleaver, and then brought them forward to break a bone, as butchers do. If anyone is killed while he draws the cleaver back, i.e., while he lifts it up in front of him or while he causes it to descend behind him, the butcher is not exiled. If anyone is killed when he brings the cleaver forward, i.e., when he lifts it up behind him or while he causes it to descend from in front of him, the butcher should be exiled. This is the governing principle. Whenever the object is descending, the person responsible should be exiled. If it is not, if it is not, even the descent or the purpose of ascent does not cause the person to be exiled. What is an example of descent for the purpose of an ascent? If a person was ascending on a ladder and a rung gave way under his feet and fell and caused the death, the person climbing is not obligated to be exiled. Similarly, in the following situations, the death is considered close to having been caused by factors beyond the control of the individuals involved, and they are not exiles. A. A person intended to throw an article in one direction and went in another direction. B. A person had a stone in his bosom that he had never been made aware of, and when he stood up, it fell. Or C. A blind man killed someone unintentionally. 15. If there was a stone in his bosom that he was aware of and he forgot it, and he then stood up, and the stone fell and caused the death, he is exiled, as implied by Numbers 35:15, which mentions the death taking place unintentionally. From the use of that term, we can infer that he knew of the stone's existence beforehand. If the iron slips from the axe rebounding from the tree he is chopping, he is not exiled, because this does not come from his own force, but from the effect generated by his force. Thus, it is like a factor that is beyond his control. Similarly, if a person throws a stone into a date palm to knock down dates, and the dates fall on an infant and kill him, the person who throws the stone is not liable to be exiled because the infant was killed, not by force that he generated, but from the effect generated by his force. Similar principles apply with regard to other blows brought about by analogous situations. Thus ends Chapter 6. Questions, comments, concerns, letters to the editor?
How do you not know you don't have a stone in your bosom?
I guess you put it in your pocket like a month ago and forgot it. Good question.
Yeah, it's like, well, how big is the yeah, it's like if you can put it in your pocket or anything, unless you throw it, I can understand, but it's like, huh? Huh.
Is blood redeeming a protected practice? Because it seems like it's common or would be common or would be accepted in so many occasions. Is it considered to be a protected act that you could do legally?
Yeah, blood redeeming. If someone killed someone that you were close to, a relative usually, then yeah, it was allowed.
Wow. Hmm.
Anything else?
Most of this is pretty straightforward, it seems.
It is. Nothing else for Chapter 6?
I'm good.
Okay. Who wants to read 7?
I can do 7.
Go ahead.
Okay. When a Torah scholar is exiled to a city of refuge, his teacher is exiled together with him. This is derived from Deuteronomy 19:5, which states, "He shall flee to one of these cities, and he shall live." Implied is that everything necessary for his life must be provided for him. Therefore, a scholar must be provided with his teacher. For the life of one who possesses knowledge without Torah study is considered to be death. Similarly, if a teacher is exiled, his academy is exiled with him.
Bummer.
When a servant is exiled to a city of refuge, his master is not obligated to provide for his sustenance. The income for his labor, however, belongs to his master. When a woman is exiled to a city of refuge, her husband is obligated to provide for her sustenance, for he cannot tell her, "Take the fruits of your labor in exchange for your sustenance," unless the woman is capable of earning a sufficient amount to provide for herself. 3. When a killer is sentenced to exile and died before the sentence was implemented, his bones should be taken to a city of refuge and buried there. When a killer dies in his city of refuge, he should be buried there. When the high priest dies, the bones of the killer may be taken to his ancestral plot. When any of the other Levites who live in the city of refuge dies, he should not be buried within the city or within its Sabbath boundary. As Numbers 35:3 states, their open space will be for their animals, for their property, and all. Let me try that again. Their open space will be for their animals, for their property, and for all their life. Implied is that these cities were given for life, not for burial. When a killer kills accidentally in a city of refuge, he should be taken to from one neighborhood to another. He should not depart from the city. Similarly, when a Levite kills in one of his own cities, he should be exiled to another one of the cities of the Levites, for they all serve as a haven, as will be explained. If he killed outside the cities of the Levites and fled to his own city, that city serves as a haven for him.
Never give a shit. Food's done.
When the majority of the inhabitants of a city of refuge are killers, it no longer serves as a haven. This is derived from Joshua 24, which speaks of the designation of the cities of refuge and states, and the killer will speak his own words in the ears of the elders of the city, implied that there is a distinction between their words and his words. Similarly, a city that does not have elders does not serve as a haven, for it is written, "the elders of the city." When a killer is exiled to a city of refuge and the inhabitants of the city desire to show him honor, he should tell them, "I am a killer." If they say, "We desire to honor you regardless," he may accept the honor from them. A person who was exiled to a city of refuge should never leave his city of refuge, not even to perform a mitzvah or to deliver testimony. Neither testimony involving monetary matters nor testimony involving a capital case. He should not leave even if he can save a life by delivering testimony, or he can save a person from Gentiles, from a river, from a fire, or from an avalanche. This implies, even if he is a person like Yoav ben Zeruiah, upon whom the salvation of the entire Jewish people may depend, he should never leave the city of refuge until the death of the high priest. If he departs, he is allowed for his death as explained. When it is said that a killer may return after the death of the high priest, the intent is a high priest anointed with the anointing oil, one who assumed his office through wearing his vestments, one who performs the service of a high priest, and one who was removed from his office. When any of these four die, a killer may return from his city of refuge. When, by contrast, a priest anointed to lead the nation in war dies, a killer may not return. for this priest is considered to be an ordinary priest. The following individuals are exiled and never return from their exile. A person who was sentenced in exile at the time when the office of the high priest was not filled. B, a person who killed a high priest unintentionally and there was no other high priest, or a high priest who killed unintentionally and there was no other high priest. 11. If, however, the killer was sentenced, but the high priest died before the killer was actually exiled, he is not required to go into exile. If, before the killer was sentenced, the high priest dies, and another high priest was anointed in his stead, and then the sentence of exile was delivered, the killer returns after the death of the second high priest, the one in whose term of office he was sentenced. If a killer was sentenced and it was discovered that the high priest was the son of a divorcee or the son of a woman who underwent chalitza, the high priesthood is negated. It is as if he were sentenced without there having been a high priest and may never leave his city of refuge. When a killer returns to his city after the death of the high priest, he is considered to be an ordinary citizen. If the blood redeemer slays him, the blood redeemer should be executed, for the killer has already gained atonement through exile. Although the killer was granted atonement, he should never return to a position of authority that he previously held. Instead, he should be diminished in stature for his entire life because of the great calamity that he caused. Finally, although a person who intentionally injures his father is liable to be executed by the court, just like a person who kills another person, if a person unintentionally injured his parents, he is not liable for exile. For the Torah prescribed exile only for a person who unintentionally killed another man, as we have stated.
Alrighty. Anything for 7?
Yeah, make sure there's a high priest at all times.
Yeah. You're going to accidentally kill someone, plan it right.
Yeah, check the want ads before. Yeah, check the want ads before you go into exile. You might be stuck in the city for life.
Again, very straightforward. Very fair.
Why?
Okay, where to go? The 112.
Mm-hmm.
Define that a little bit.
Chalitza?
Well, I know what that is, but I don't understand why. If a killer was sentenced and it was discovered the high priest was the son of a divorcee or the son of a woman who underwent chalitza.
So only a virgin can marry a high priest. If it's discovered after the fact that the high priest was born of a woman who was a divorcee or had had a previous husband, he's not really the high priest. It's as if his office was illegitimate his entire life.
Okay.
And the schmuck that accidentally killed someone gets the short end of the stick.
Right. Okay.
Anything else for 7?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay.
Not offhand, no sir.
Okay. Moving on to 8. Anybody want to read for 8?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay. Go ahead.
1. It is a positive commandment to set aside cities of refuge. As Deuteronomy 19 verse 2 states, you shall set aside 3 cities. The practice of setting aside cities of refuge applies only in Eretz Israel. 2. There were 6 cities of refuge. 3 Moses our teacher set aside in Transjordan, and 3 Joshua set aside in the land of Canaan. 3. None of the cities of refuge served as a haven until they were all set aside, as implied by Numbers 35, verse 13. There shall be 6 cities of refuge for you. And so Moses informed us that the 3 cities of refuge in Transjordan did not serve as a haven until the 3 in the land of Canaan were set aside. If so, why did Moses set them aside? He said, "Since the mitzvah came to my hand, I will fulfill it." 4. In the era of the king Mashiach, 3 other cities will be added to these 6, as Deuteronomy 19, verse 9 states, and you shall add 3 other cities to these cities, 3 cities. Where are these cities added? In the cities of Kenai, Kenizi, and Kedmonai, concerning which a covenant has been made with Abraham, but which have not yet been conquered. These cities, as Torah Ibid 8 says, and if God your Lord will expand your boundaries. 5. The Jewish court is obligated to construct roads leading to the cities of refuge. They should be maintained and widened. Any stumbling block and obstacle should be removed from them. On these roads, neither a hill, a valley, nor a river should be left. Instead, a bridge should be built across so as not to impede the person fleeing there. This is all implied by Deuteronomy 19, verse 3, which states, "You shall prepare a road for yourselves." The width of the road to the city of refuge should not be less than 32 cubits. Signs stating "refuge, refuge" should be written at an intersection so that killers would be aware of their way and turn there. 6. Every year on the 15th of Adar, the court would send out emissaries to inspect the roads leading to the cities of refuge. Wherever they found flaws, they would have them repaired. If a court was dilatory regarding this matter, it was considered as if they shed blood. 7. When the cities of refuge were first set aside, they would measure from one city to another to determine whether they were set aside in equal measures. This is also implied by the verse, "You shall prepare a road for yourselves." 8. The cities of refuge that are designated should not be big cities or metropolises, nor should they be small villages. Instead, they should be cities of an intermediate size. They should be located solely in trading places where water is found. If there is no water near them, water should be diverted toward them. They should located solely, it doesn't make sense. They should located solely in a populated area. If the surrounding populace is reduced, they should be increased. If the number of inhabitants of a city of refuge decreases, priests, Levites, and Israelites should be brought to live there. Snares may not be set in such a city, nor may rope traps be set there, so that the blood redeemer will not come there. 9. All the cities of the Levites serve as a haven. Each is a city of refuge. This is indicated by Numbers 35, verses 6 through 7. And in addition to them, you shall give them 42 cities. All the cities that you shall give the Levites shall be 48 in number. The verse thus established an association between them. All of them serve as havens. 10. What then is the difference between those cities that set aside as cities of refuge and the other cities of the Levites? The cities of refuge serve as havens whether one enters them with the intent of taking refuge or if one enters them without that intent. Since a killer enters their confines, they serve as a haven for him. The other cities of the Levites have served as a haven only when one enters with the intent in mind. Also, a killer who lives in a designated city of refuge does not have to pay rent. If, by contrast, he lives in another one of the cities of the Levites, he must pay his landlord rent. 11. Whenever a city serves as a haven, the surrounding area also serves as a haven. When a tree is standing within the limits of the city of refuge, and its leaves extend beyond those limits. Once a killer comes below its leaves, they serve as a haven for him. If a tree stands outside the limits and its leaves extend within those limits, as soon as he reaches its trunk, it serves as a haven for him. If the blood redeemer kills him there, he should be executed. Even though the surrounding area of a city serves as a haven, a killer should not dwell there, as implied by Numbers 35, verse 25. He shall dwell in it, i.e., not in its surrounding area. Anything.
Anybody?
Okay. The 3 cities of refuge. Were these located within a specific tribe's land areas, or
Well, there were 6.
oh, right.
They were all over the country, different areas.
Okay. So it had nothing to do with, or there's no reason as far as being in conjunction with the tribes as to where they were located.
No.
Okay.
So all 6 of them have to be within the same length away from each other, or is like 3 to the north and 3 to the south?
They're not. None of them are really that close together. Some of them are in what we would call biblical Moab, which is today is Jordan. They're pretty well spread out.
And now, as I was reading, I wasn't listening. It said, 30. Okay, the width of the road to the city of refuge should not be less than 32 cubits. Is that long or width?
Well, it couldn't be just 32 cubits long. That's not long at all. So
Yeah. About how long, how wide is? Oh, no, it says the width. Duh. Okay. Jeez.
32 cubits is, I'm trying to think. Well, it depends on which cubit they're using. There's actually 2 different kinds.
Good to know.
I hear a child.
Yay. Hi, Catherine.
Yes, they're both here.
Hi, Maddie.
Hello.
I saw Mario using it.
Hang on. Okay, hang on, y'all. I have one question, or I had a question.
Oh, take your time.
So one of the 43 cities, okay, they're there regardless. If you come for sanctuary, you can find it. But it's the difference is one's not designated by the court, one's not overseen. Is that how it works? That they're not built for refuge per se, and so so a killer isn't actually sent there by the court. Is that what I was on 10? I mean, it's in 10.
So, with the city of the Levites, you want to take refuge there. You have to enter with the intent of seeking refuge. It's not like a regular designated city of refuge where you automatically achieve, I guess you'd say, asylum once you enter the city. Does that clarify a little? Yeah, James.
I got it.
Can you hear me, James?
Oh, my mic was off.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay. So, so the Levitical cities, this is just to give Levites a place to live, right? And they're scattered about just so they have a place. Okay.
Because the Levites don't have their own territory, so they have their own cities, kind of scattered all throughout the country.
Okay. I'd always kind of like halfway assumed they would either be traveling or would be in one of the 6 cities, plus Jerusalem.
Well, they're definitely in Jerusalem. But
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense now.
anything else?
I think we got that.
Okay. Chapter 9. 1. The following procedure should be adhered to when the corpse of a slain person is found lying on the earth, and it is not known who struck him. It is left in place. 5 elders from the high court in Jerusalem come and measure from the corpse to the nearby cities, as indicated by Deuteronomy 21:2, and your elders and your judges shall go out and measure. Even if the corpse is found right next to a city, or it is clearly obvious that a particular city is closer, it is a mitzvah to measure. 2. After they measure and establish which city is closest, they bury the person who was murdered in the place he was found. The elders from Jerusalem return to their city, and the court of the city that was designated brings a calf paid for by all its inhabitants. They bring the calf to a river that flows forcefully. This is the meaning of the term Eitan found in the Torah, Deuteronomy 21:4. It should be decapitated there with a cleaver from behind. The court of that city and all the elders of the city, even if they are 100 in number, must wash their hands at the place where the calf was decapitated. There, in the midst of the river, the elders declare in the holy tongue, Deuteronomy 21:7, our hands did not shed this blood, nor did we see this with our eyes. Their intent is that the murdered person did not come into their city, and they let him leave without giving him provisions for the way, nor did they see him go, and they let him leave without accompaniment. The priests then say in the holy tongue, atone for your nation Israel. They depart, the Holy One, blessed be He, then forgives the shedding of the blood, as the above verse continues, and the blood will be atoned. When the judges measure the distance from the corpse to the nearest city, they must measure exactly and not by estimation. They should measure only to a city that has a court of 23 judges. They should never measure, however, to Jerusalem, for the inhabitants of Jerusalem are never required to bring a calf to be decapitated. For Jerusalem was never divided among the tribes, and the mitzvah of decapitating a calf applies in the land that God, your Lord, is giving you to inherit, Deuteronomy 19:1. 5. If the corpse is found close to Jerusalem or close to a city that does not have a court, that city should be ignored, and a measurement should be made to other cities close by. If the corpse is found close to a border city or to a city inhabited by Gentiles, no measurement is made at all, for we presume that the person was killed by Gentiles. 6. The city that is closest to the corpse does not bring the calf unless its population is equal to that of the city that is further away. If, however, the population of the city that is further away exceeds that of the closer city, the number of inhabitants becomes the determining factor, and the more populous city must bring the calf. 7. Although at times the Torah considers number to be a determining factor, and at times proximity to be a determining factor, number carries more weight than proximity. If a corpse is found equidistant between the 2 cities, and both cities have the same number of inhabitants, they should bring a calf in partnership and make the following stipulation. If this city is the closer, the calf belongs to its inhabitants, and the others are giving them their portion in it as a present. And if the other city is closer, the calf belongs to its inhabitants, and the others are giving them their portion in it as a present. For it is impossible to be exact in measurement, even with regard to something that comes about as a result of human activity. From which portion of the corpse should we measure? From the nose. If the body of a corpse is found in one place and the head in another place, the body is brought to the head, and then the corpse is buried in that place. Similarly, whenever a corpse is found with no one to bury it, the body is brought to the head, and then the corpse is buried in that place. If many corpses were found next to each other, a measurement should be made from the nose of each one individually. If one city is discovered to be closest to all of them, it brings one calf for all the corpses. If the corpses are found piled one on top of the other, we should measure from the top corpse, and since it is lying on top of the others. Deuteronomy 21:1 states, when a corpse is found, halal, the term used for corpse indicates a person slain with a sword and not strangled to death, nor a person in his death throes. These are not implied by the term halal. The verse continues on the earth, i.e., not buried in a mound, fallen, and not hanging from a tree, in the field, and not floating on the water. And it is not known who killed him. Thus, if the murderer's identity is known, a calf was not decapitated. 12. Even if only one witness, or even a servant, a woman, or a person disqualified to serve as a witness because of his transgression saw the murderer, the calf would not be decapitated. For this reason, in the later part of the Second Temple period, when the number of those who murdered overtly increased, the decapitation of the calf was nullified. 13. If one witness says, I saw the murderer, and another witness disputes his statement saying, you did not see him, the calf would be decapitated. What does the above apply? When does the above apply? When the two witnesses came to the same time. If, however, the witness who claims to have seen the murderer came first and testified, his word is believed and would be that of two witnesses in this context. Therefore, if another witness comes and disputes his testimony, claiming that the first witness did not see the murderer, the words of the second witness are of no consequences, and the calf would not be decapitated. If after one witness testifies that he saw the murderer, two witnesses come and testify that he did not see him, it is considered as if there are two testimonies of equal weight disputing each other, and the calf should be decapitated. If a woman says, I saw the murderer, and another woman disputes her testimony and says, you did not see it, the calf should be decapitated. This applies regardless of whether the women came together or one after the other. If two say, we saw him, and one says, you did not see him, the calf should not be decapitated. If one says, I saw him, and two say, you did not see him, the calf should be decapitated. When does the above apply? When the three witnesses mentioned are either all acceptable or all unacceptable. If, however, one acceptable witness says, I saw the murderer, and two women or two unacceptable witnesses contradict him and say that he did not see him, the calf should not be decapitated. When two women or two unacceptable witnesses say, we saw the murderer, and one acceptable witness denies their statements and says that they did not see him, the calf should be decapitated. Even when 100 women or 100 unacceptable witnesses say, we saw the murderer, and one acceptable witness denies all of their statements, all the unacceptable witnesses are considered as if they were one man with the weight of a single witness. When three women of three unacceptable witnesses say, we saw the murderer, and four women or four unacceptable witnesses say, you did not see him, the calf should be decapitated. This is the guiding principle. With regard to unacceptable witnesses, accept the testimony supported by the most witnesses in all situations.
Wow. Okay, for clarification, the calf is sent into the river, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is it decapitated in the river?
Yeah.
Okay. And the head goes down the river as well?
I guess.
Okay. What happens if the calf lives?
Kind of hard to live after you've been decapitated.
Well, if it wasn't decapitated, I meant the ones that weren't decapitated.
I don't understand.
Well, you have instances where the calf is not decapitated.
Right.
So they're sending it down alive in the river.
No, there's no ritual involving a calf at that point if it's not decapitated.
Okay, that's the clarification that I wanted.
Okay.
So what happens to the calf if they don't use it? It goes back to the city?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely. What about you, James? Anything?
I just sat back down. I had to get everybody's snack ready, and somebody jumped off my bed, landed on my amplifier and guitar, and I had to.
Ah.
So your class was this section, this chapter was a little interrupted.
Ah.
So apologies for that.
No worries at all. But basically, the crux of this chapter is when we find a person murdered in a field, we measure the distance to the nearest city with a court, and the presumption is that's the city that the murderer is from, and that city has to provide a calf to be decapitated as an atonement for that whole city, since we don't know who the individual murderer is.
Okay. So you make an offering on their behalf.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Basically it.
Bookmark this and come back. Would you like me to read 10?
If you would, please.
All right. Okay, 1. The law of the decapitated calf is practiced only in Eretz Yisrael. It is also practiced in Transjordan. 2. The calf that is decapitated may be 2 years old or younger. If, however, it is 2 years and 1 day old, it is not acceptable. Physical blemishes do not disqualify it. Nevertheless, if it is treif, it is unacceptable. For atonement is mentioned with regard to it as if it is mentioned with regard to sacrificial offerings. 3. Deuteronomy 21:3 states that has never been Deuteronomy 23:1 states that has never been worked and that has never carried a yoke. Accordingly, all types of work disqualify the calf, just as they disqualify a red heifer. Why is a yoke then singled out? Seemingly, it is included with the other tasks in the expression that has never been worked, to teach that a yoke disqualifies a calf whether or not it carries it while working. If a calf carries a yoke for a distance of a handbreadth, it is disqualified even though it did not plow with it or perform any work. With regard to other tasks, by contrast, they do not disqualify a calf unless work was actually performed. 4. Whenever the calf performs a task for its own benefit that does not disqualify it, for example, the owner spread his garment over to protect it from flies. Any task that is for its own benefit, for example, the owner spread his garment over it so that it should carry it, disqualifies it. The same applies in all analogous situations as we have explained in the Hilchot Parah. 5. The calf should be decapitated only during the daytime for atonement is mentioned in regard to it, as it is mentioned with regard to sacrificial offerings. It is acceptable to decapitate it any time during the entire day. 2 calves should not be decapitated at the same time, for mitzvot should not be performed in bundles. 6. It is forbidden to benefit from a calf that is decapitated. It should be buried in the place where it was decapitated. Once it is taken down to the river, benefiting from it becomes forbidden, even though it has not yet been decapitated. Thus, if it dies, or was slaughtered after it was decapitated, one is forbidden to benefit from it, and it should be buried. 7. If, however, the witnesses are found to be lying, it is permitted to benefit from the calf. What is implied? 1 witness testified that he saw the murderer, and 2 witnesses came and negate his testimony, telling him, "You did not see him." If on this basis the court set aside a calf and brought it down to the river to decapitate it because of their testimony, and these witnesses were disqualified afterwards as lying witnesses, it is permitted to benefit from the calf. 8. If the murderer was discovered before the calf was decapitated, it should be released and allowed to pasture with the herd. If he was discovered after the calf was decapitated, before it was buried, it should be buried in its place. For at the outset, it was brought because of a doubt. It atoned for this lack of knowledge and served its purpose. Even when the murderer is discovered after the decapitation of the calf, he should be executed. As Deuteronomy 21:9 states, you shall thus rid yourselves of the guilt for the shedding of innocent blood. 9. It is forbidden ever to sow seeds or till the river in which the calf was decapitated. As Deuteronomy 21:4 states, that must never be worked or sown. Whoever performs work with the land itself, for example, he plowed, he dug, he seeded, he planted, or the like, should be punished with lashes. It is, however, permitted to comb flax there or to drill stones, for this is similar to weaving a garment there or sewing it there. For these are tasks that are not performed with the land itself. To emphasize this concept, the verse states, that must never be worked or sown. Implied is that just as sowing involves the land itself, similarly, all work that is forbidden there involves the land itself. 10. When the inhabitants of a city that was closest to a corpse have delayed and have not brought a calf for decapitation, they should be compelled to bring it even though several years have passed. For those who are liable to bring a calf for decapitation remain liable despite the fact that Yom Kippur has passed. So you would have a designated place that you would have to decapitate something, wouldn't you?
Yep.
And does this go for a season, or can you not plow there ever again?
At the spot where it was decapitated, you can't plow there ever again.
Okay.
And that negated what we talked about in the last chapter.
What you mean?
Well, I was under the impression that once you decapitated the calf, you just let the river take it down the river.
Oh, you bury it.
Okay, that's what. Okay.
It's kind of telling you exactly. I mean, if that's not a lesson to the community as a whole.
Oh, that's the point.
Yeah.
Someone ends up murdered at the gates of your city, you end up having to waste a perfectly good calf.
So yeah, that's food. Don't allow it to happen.
What's that?
Because it's food. Don't allow that to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're basically telling someone, okay, no steaks this year. Ah, damn it.
Right, exactly.
And the fact that you can never till or work the land where
Right.
that's decapitated, that's like a stain that sits there forever.
Yep.
I think that's the point. So it gives you
Yeah.
the mark. It's now. Can you rebury new calves in that area or no?
That's not exactly clear.
Okay.
I would think so.
Because you'd want to keep the land around it pure so you can work it.
Right.
But you can do other work except for whatever is working with the land.
Right. Yeah.
So you can build on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not using it for agriculture.
Yeah. Wow, this is good stuff.
Here it comes. All right. Is that one it for 10?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Verse 12. 1. It is a positive commandment for a man to build a guardrail for his roof, as Deuteronomy 22:8 says, and you shall make a guardrail for your roof. This applies with regard to a building used as a dwelling. But for a warehouse or a cattle barn and the like, there is no necessity. Similarly, any building that is not 4 cubits by 4 cubits does not require a guardrail. 2. A house owned by 2 partners requires a guardrail, as it can be inferred from Deuteronomy 22, verse 8, for one who falls may certainly fall from it. The obligation stems from the fact that one may fall. If so, why does the verse state your roof? To exclude synagogues and houses of studies, for they are not intended to serve as dwellings. If the public domain is higher than a person's roof, he does not need to erect a guardrail, for the phrase, for one who falls may certainly fall from it, implies that a guardrail is intended to prevent people from falling from the roof and not onto the roof. 3. The height of a guardrail should not be any less than 10 handbreadths, so that a person who might fall will not fall from it. A guardrail must be a partition strong enough to enable a person to lean on it without falling. Anyone who leaves his roof open without a guardrail negates the observance of a positive commandment and violates a negative commandment, as Deuteronomy 22:8 states, do not cause blood to be spilled in your home. The violation of this commandment is not punished by lashes, for it does not involve a deed. 4. This requirement applies to a roof and similarly to any place that might present a danger and cause a person to stumble and die. For example, if a person has a well or a cistern in his courtyard, he must erect a sand wall 10 handbreadths high around them or make a cover for them so that person will not fall and die. Similarly, it is a positive mitzvah to remove any obstacle that could pose a danger to life and to be very careful regarding these manners. As Deuteronomy 4, verse 9 states, beware for yourself and guard your soul. If a person leaves a dangerous obstacle and does not remove it, he negates the observance of a positive commandment and violates the negative commandment, do not cause blood to be spilled. 5. Our sages forbade many matters because they involve a threat to life. Whenever a person transgresses these guidelines, saying, I will risk my life, what does this matter to others? Or, I am not careful about these things, he should be punished with stripes for rebelliousness. 6. They include a person should not place his mouth over a conduit through which water flows and drink, nor should he drink at night from rivers and lakes, lest he swallow the leech without seeing. Similarly, a person should not drink water that was left uncovered, lest a snake or other poisonous crawling animal might have drunk from them, and as a result, the person would die. 7. These are the liquids that are forbidden if left uncovered: water, wine, even watered down wine, or wine whose flavor has begun to change to vinegar, milk, honey, and brine. Other liquids are not forbidden if left uncovered because venomous animals would not drink from them. 8. When garlic has been crushed or a watermelon cut open and left uncovered, they are forbidden. The same applies in all analogous situations. The prohibition against drink uncovered drinking uncovered beverages does not apply to wine that has been boiled or unfermented wine. The unfermented wine refers to wine from the time it was squeezed from grapes until 3 days have passed. Similarly, the prohibition against drinking uncovered beverages does not apply to wine, water, or milk that are hot to the extent that vapor arises from them, nor to liquids into which liquid is descending from above drop after drop, providing the liquid continuously descends. For crawling animals fear bubbles and vapor, and they will not drink from them. 9. The prohibition against drinking uncovered beverages does not apply to water used for pickling, cooking food, or cooking veg. Similarly, this prohibition does not apply when pickled foods, cooked foods, or veg have been left to soak in water, if they have changed the taste of the water. If they did not change the taste, the water is forbidden if left uncovered. Similarly, water in which quince or Syrian pears were washed for a sick person is forbidden if left uncovered. 10. The prohibition against drinking uncovered beverages does not apply when sharp tasting substances like pepper or bitter substances like wormwood are mixed with wine to the extent that its flavor changes. The same applies with regard to other beverages. When a liquid is forbidden if left uncovered, it is forbidden whether it was left uncovered during the day or during the night. This applies even when a person was sleeping beside the liquid, for crawling animals are not afraid of sleeping men. How long must a liquid be left uncovered to be forbidden? For as long as it takes for a crawling animal to emerge from under the container, drink, and return to its place. 12. The quantity of water that becomes forbidden if uncovered is an amount in which the venom could remain a distinct entity and cause danger. If, however, there is so much that the venom would be nullified as if it does not exist, the water is permitted. This applies to water contained in utensils or on the ground. The same law applies to other liquids. 13. The prohibition against drinking uncovered beverages does not apply to a stream that is flowing, even slightly. When a container of wine is left uncovered in a chest, a bureau, or a closet, or in a large container in a pit that has even 100 cubits deep, in a tower that is 100 cubits high, or in a hall that is ornamented and plastered, it is forbidden. If the person checked the bureau or the chest and then put wine there, it is permitted. If there was a hole in the chest, it is forbidden. How large must the hole be? Large enough for a child to insert his small finger. 14. When a jug is left uncovered, the person should not drink from it, although 9 people drank from it before him without dying. An incident occurred, and it was reported that the 10th person who drank from a jug died because the venom of the snake sank to the bottom of the jug. And there is venom from some small crawling animals that rises to the surface of liquids, and other venom that becomes suspended in the middle. Therefore, everything is forbidden. This applies even if one filtered the liquid with a filter. Similarly, when a watermelon was left uncovered, even 9 people partook of it without dying, the 10th should not partake of it. 15. Water that was left uncovered should not be poured into a public domain, nor should it be used to settle the dust of a home, nor should it be used to mix mortar, nor should it be used to wash one's face, to water one's animal, or an animal belonging to a colleague. It may, however, be used to water a cat. 16. When dough has been mixed with water that has been left uncovered, it should be burned. This even applies if the dough was teruma. Even if it has been baked, it is forbidden. Boy, there's a lot of tongue twisters there, and I'm glad I'm not a cat.
I have a couple questions. What is vetch? VETCH. Where was that? There it is, 9. The prohibition against drinking uncovered beverages does not apply to water used for pickling, cooking food, or cooking veg. I guess I could do a Google search.
I'm already on it.
I get everything with veg. I know what a brine is. And actually, I know a chef who just loves brine just for the way the meat is cooked after being soaked in it. And
Well, brine would be for pickling.
Yeah, it's like for meat and stuff.
Well, your vegetables too, like your pickles and your coleslaw, cabbage, whatever. Doggone it.
That's true. Another question I'm curious about is in 10, the Syrian pears. I think it was 10. No? You know what I'm talking about? The Syrian pears. Here it is. It's still a 9. Water in which quince and Syrian pears were washed for a sick person.
I would assume somebody making a poultice or maybe medicinals.
I guess quince. There's another word. Google that one too.
Okay, vetch is it's a purple flower, but what they give here, it's a twining leguminous plant which is grown for fodder or for green manure, which would be for like decomposing and for fertilizing ground, I guess.
Okay.
And I can't remember what quince is. It's not quince is quince. I think is a little. It's a little fruit like smaller than an apricot. I think.
Yeah, here it is. Cydonia in the family of. Okay.
It looks like a pear.
Yeah. Bears a palm fruit similar to a pear. Yeah. Oh, Catherine. It's almost time to put these two to bed.
Wow, it must be pretty good. It says it has a fragrance of vanilla, citrus, and apple.
Ooh.
Yeah. Cool.
There she is.
Hi, Catherine. Yeah, I'm sitting here while I'm reading this. Everything of all my bartending is like I'm making different drinks that do what he's saying. It's like you layer them on a spoon or whatever, and I'm going, "Oh, that's not good." That's it's just like, okay. So why is it okay to possibly kill your cat? That's a good question.
Cats can hack it. Yeah.
I have no idea. You can water a cat.
I want to read that one more time, just because water that was left uncovered should not be poured into the public domain, nor should it be used to settle the dust of a home, nor should it be used to mix mortar, nor should it be used to wash one's face, to water one's animal or an animal belonging to a colleague. It may, however, be used to water a cat.
I know. It's like, with the cat, well, unless they want to get rid of cats because they are the gods of Egypt,
It's true. I can see that.
Well, plus sometimes if you mix mortar, the person, since it was mixed by hand, it would be in the water, it would be in there, and it would poison you through the skin absorption. That I can see that.
Oh, yummy.
Okay.
I don't think it would have any lasting benefit once the brick or once the brick of the mortar hardened, but I that thing with the cat, that's going to bother me. It's interesting. Yeah, and don't drink any leeches. Not good. Okay. You still hanging, Gav? Okay. I'll just hold the fork down. You still there, Gav?
Gabrielle.
You must be busy.
Hobbling around somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah, I want to hear about this cat thing. I'm sorry. That's going to be worse. I don't know.
They're scavengers, maybe?
No. I don't know. Maybe they have something, like I said, maybe they have something in their system, or it's okay to poison a cat. I don't know.
I guess because they're scavengers, maybe. I don't know.
I'm gonna lean toward the god of the Egyptians.
Meow.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, for continuity's sake, shall I read
Chapter 12?
12?
Sure.
All right. And then I want to take a break. Hopefully Gab will be back. I got to get these girls down. All right. Chapter 12. When an animal, a beast, or a fowl has been bitten by a snake or another poisonous anema, or it ate a poison that could kill a person, and the nature of the poison has not changed in the animal's body, it is forbidden to partake of meat from that animal because of the deadly danger involved. For this reason, if an animal, a beast, or a fowl was found with its feet cut off, although it is permitted, and it is not considered treif because its feet were cut off, it is forbidden because of the possible danger, unless it is checked because of the probability that a poisonous crawling animal bit it. How should such meat be checked? It should be roasted in an oven. If the meat does not break into pieces or react differently from ordinary roasted meat, it is acceptable. Interesting. Similarly, figs, grapes, zucchini, squash, watermelons, and cucumbers that have holes are forbidden, lest a snake or another poisonous animal have bitten them. This applies even if the procedure was very large, and regardless of whether it was still growing or detached, even if it was placed within a container, as long as it has moisture and it is discovered that it was bitten, it is forbidden. Even if one saw a bird or a rat sitting and making holes in the fruit, it is still forbidden. Perhaps they made the hole in place of an existing hole. When the stem of a grape or a fig has been removed, the produce is not considered to have been left uncovered. Therefore, a person may eat figs and grapes at night without concern. A fig that had a hole but dried to the extent that it can be considered a dried fig, and a date that had a hole and dries are both permitted. It is forbidden for a person to place coins or denarim in his mouth, lest there be the remnants of dried spittle from a leper or a metzora, or sweat on them. For all sweat from a person is like poisonous venom, except sweat from one's face. Similarly, a person should not place the palm of his hand under his armpits, lest his hands have touched a leper or poisonous substance, for hands are active. A person should not place a cooked fish under the couch on which he is reclining, even though he is in the midst of his meal, lest an entity that could harm fall into the food without his noticing. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
6. Similarly, one should not stick a knife into an etrog or into a radish, lest a person fall on its point and die. Similarly, it is forbidden for a person to pass under a wall that is leaning, or over a shaky bridge, or to enter a ruin. Similarly, it is forbidden to enter all other places that are dangerous for these or other reasons. Similarly, it is forbidden for a Jew to enter into privacy with a Gentile, for they are suspect for bloodshed. Nor should one accompany Gentiles. I'm going to say this is no creed.
Yeah.
We'll look that up later. Nor should one accompany Gentiles on a journey. If a Jew encounters a Gentile on a journey, he should make sure the Gentile is at his right. If they are making an ascent or a descent together, the Jew should be careful that he should be in the higher position and a Gentile in the lower position, but not vice versa, lest the Gentile fall on him with the intent of killing him. Nor should a Jew bend down before a Gentile, lest he crush his skull. If a Gentile asks a Jew, I've just for posterity, I'm not so sure. Yeah, we'll come back to this.
Yeah.
If a Gentile asks a Jew where he is going, he should give him a misleading answer, as Jacob gave a misleading answer to Esau. In Genesis 33:14 states, until I come to my master in Seir. 9. It is forbidden to take medication from a Gentile unless there is no hope that the sick person will live. It is forbidden to be healed by a heretic, even if one is no hope that the person will live. It is permitted to take a medication from a Gentile or an animal or for an external affliction, for example, a compass or a bandage. If, however, the affliction involves danger to life, it is forbidden to take medication from them. The general rule is one should not take medication from a Gentile or for any affliction for which one may desecrate the Sabbath. It is permitted to ask the opinion of a Gentile doctor and follow his directives. If he says this drug is good for you, you should perform these and these treatments. One should not take the prescription from him directly. It is forbidden to have one's hair cut by a Gentile in a private domain, lest the barber kill him. If the person whose hair is being cut and is an important person, it is permitted because the Gentile will be afraid to kill him. It is also permitted for a person who creates an impression of being an important person for a Gentile barber so that he will fear him and not kill him to have his hair cut by him. It is forbidden to sell Gentiles any weaponry. You may not sharpen weapons for them or sell them a knife. Chains put on the necks of prisoners, fetters, iron chains, raw Indian iron, say Hindi iron, I'm sure, bears, lions, or any other object that could cause danger to people at large. One may, however, sell them shields, for these serve only the purpose of defense. Just as it is forbidden to sell such weaponry to a Gentile, so too it is forbidden to sell it to a Jew who will sell it to a Gentile. It is permitted to sell weapons to soldiers of the country in which one lives because they defend the Jewish inhabitants of that land. Every article that is forbidden to be sold to a Gentile is also forbidden to be sold to a Jewish robber, for by doing so, one reinforces a transgressor and causes him to sin. Similarly, anyone who causes a person to hold his blind Similarly, one who causes a person who is blind with regard to a certain matter to stumble and gives him improper advice, or who reinforces a transgressor, who is spiritually blind, for he does not see the path of truth because of the desires of his heart, transgresses a negative commandment, as Leviticus 19:14 states, do not place an obstacle in front of a blind man. When a person comes to ask advice from you, give him proper counsel. It is forbidden to give good advice to a wicked Gentile or servant. It is even forbidden to counsel him to observe a mitzvah if he perseveres in his wickedness. Daniel was subjected to a test solely because he advised Nebuchadnezzar to give him charity. As Daniel 4:24 states, O king, let my counsel be acceptable to you. Redeem your sins through charity.
There's a lot to chew on in this verse.
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead and put your kids down, and I'll wait
Okay.
for Gab
I'll
to
be
come
back in a few minutes.
Yeah. I'll hold it. Are you there? Gav? If you're talking, Gav, we cannot hear you. Are you okay? You're not coming through audibly. Almost. If you can hear me, can you use the side chat? Are you there?
So are we live dead air still?
Yes.
Well, I got the kids down, so that's phase one. Now it's keeping them down.
Okay.
Gav, are you there? Thought I heard something.
Read only the side chat.
Well, he didn't give you mods or me mods, did he? No.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Well, let's just continue. Yeah, let's just continue debating over. You want to debate this one on 12, or do you want to wait for him to return?
We can keep talking. Oh, here they go again. Okay. I'll be right back.
Okay. Hmm. Hmm.
Ornery kid. Ornery.
It happens.
Oh, these girls. One thinks she's a prankster. Actually, she is a prankster. It's just not funny.
At least not at this moment.
No. It's funny when I tell mom the next day.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's got to be Akum or
Nokri.
yeah, Nokri or Goy. I'm not sure this could apply. I did want to get that out, but I don't think this would apply to your, average Christian or maybe even Muslim to an extent.
Well, we're talking back in those times either when they really didn't exist, or possibly, well, they possibly could, but in today's atmosphere, it would definitely be a new ball game.
Yeah. Especially in medicine, which I hope that, it'd be nice if the Rambam could be allowed to see that, because he was a physician.
Right. It's okay to apply to the outer skin, but you can't take anything internally.
Mm-hmm.
And you shouldn't even, and if when it comes down to Shabbat, you can't use any of it, period. Which makes sense.
Can't sell weapons, but can sell shields.
Yeah. Where was it? There was one in here. There was one in here that I think 14 has a lot to say. And that might even be a good topic for Thursday nights, actually.
Every article that is forbidden to be sold to a Gentile is also forbidden to be sold to a Jewish robber. But by doing so, one reinforces a transgressor and causes him to sin.
This paragraph is the one that I am referring to.
Similarly, anyone who causes a person who is blind with regard to a certain matter to stumble and gives him improper advice, or who reinforces the transgressor, who is spiritually blind, for he does not see the path of truth because of his desires of his heart, transgresses a negative commandment, as Leviticus states, do not place an obstacle before a blind man. When a person comes to ask advice from you, give him proper counsel. Why would you think that would be a good one for Thursday night?
Because if the person is spiritually blind. Huh.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring it up. I don't want to bring it up here.
That's really good.
But we can we can talk about that later.
That's really good. I'm going to copy that.
Yeah, it's yeah.
That's worth a blog.
Mm-hmm. It kind of touches on a tangent that I had earlier this week.
14?
Mm-hmm. Just that one paragraph, yeah.
Well, if you're going to make, if they are spiritually starved, as many of us in the West are, I can understand.
Yeah, for he does not see the path of truth because the desires of his heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's boy, the ACLU would have fun with that one. There's a lot of gray matter there. But at least if we look at it, that could be an answer to a few questions. Anyway.
Yeah, you can't lead somebody astray.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be careful what you tell somebody if they come to you for spiritual advice. I mean, what do you think Israel's here for? I can see it.
Yeah.
Proper counsel.
Yeah, that says volumes. especially if you take this as a whole, and then when it starts talking into the when it starts like in number 7, it starts. But anyway, we'll discuss that later. But yeah, this is good. Well, do you think I should go ahead and read verse 13, or do you think we should wait for our host?
I know he could have left the bar open.
Yeah, he said he didn't have anything to drink, so
That's right. He hadn't.
he stated that number 1.
He's being a good boy in the wee hours of morning. I don't mind reading some more. We might not have a rabbi with us, but yeah, I say go for it. Are you next?
Yeah, that's why I was asking if you want me to continue.
And this is 12.
We are in chapter 12.
Okay.
All right. Number 1. When a person encounters a colleague who is on a journey and his animal has fallen under its load, he is commanded to unload the burden from it. This applies whether the animal was carrying a burden appropriate for it or a burden greater than it could bear. This is a positive commandment, as Exodus 23:5 states, "You shall certainly help him." 2. One should not unload the animal and depart, leaving the wayfarer in a panic. Instead, one should lift up the animal together with its owner and reload the animal's burden upon it. As Deuteronomy 22 verse 4 states, "You shall certainly lift it up." This is another positive commandment. If one leaves the wayfarer in panic without either unloading or reloading, one has negated the observance of a positive commandment and violated a negative commandment, as Deuteronomy states, "You shall not see the donkey of your brother and conceal yourself." 3. When a priest sees an animal fallen in a cemetery, he should not contract ritual impurity to unload and reload it, just as he does not contract ritual impurity to return a lost article. Similarly, if he is an elder whose practice is not to unload animals, since this is beneath his dignity, he is not liable. 4. This is a general principle. If the animal were his own and he would unload it and reload it, he is obligated to unload and reload it for a colleague. If he is pious and goes beyond the measure of the law, even if he is a great Nasi, and sees an animal belonging to a colleague fallen under a load of straw, reeds, or the like, he should unload and unload it with his owner. 5. If one unloaded and reloaded the animal and it fell again, one is obligated to unload and reload another time, indeed, even 100 times. This is indicated by the verbs, I don't know what that is because I don't read Hebrew, in the proof text as cited above. For this reason, one must accompany the animal for a parsa, unless the owner of the burden says that it is not necessary. 6. When does one become obligated to unload and reload together with its owner? When he sees a fallen animal in a way that can be described as an encounter. For Exodus 23 verse 5 states, "When you see your colleague's donkey," and the previous verse states, "when you encounter." How far distance is implied? Our sages determined it being a distance of 266 2/3 cubits, i.e. 17.5 of a mil. If a person was farther away from the fallen animal, he is not obligated. 7. It is a mitzvah from the Torah to unload an animal without charge. Loading it, however, is a mitzvah for one who may charge. Similarly, for the time when one accompanies the animal as a parsa, one may receive payment. 8. If one finds an animal belonging to a colleague fallen under its load, it is a mitzvah to unload and reload it, even if its owner is not present. For you shall certainly help, and you shall certainly lift up, implies that one must fulfill these mitzvot in all situations. If so, why does the Torah say together with him, i.e., the animal's owner, to teach that if the owner of the animal was there and goes off to the side, telling a passerby, since you have a mitzvah, if you would like to unload it yourself, unload it. The passerby is not obligated. This is implied by together with him. If the owner of the animal was old or ailing and the passerby is obligated to load and unload the animal by himself. 9. The following rules apply when the animal that is fallen and is owned by a Gentile, but the burden it is carrying is owned by a Jew. If a Gentile is the one driving his donkey, one is not obligated toward him. If not, one is obligated to unload and reload it because of the distress suffered by the Jew. Similarly, if the animal has fallen is owned by a Jew, but the burden it is carrying is owned by a Gentile, one is obligated to unload and reload it because of the distress suffered by the Jew. However, both the animal and the burden are owned by a Gentile, a passerby is not obligated to concern himself with the animal unless there is a possibility that animosity will be aroused. 10. When the legs of a donkey owned by one of the donkey's drivers in a caravan are shaky, his colleagues may not proceed and pass before him. If it falls, the other donkey drivers may pass him. 11. If one donkey was laden with the burden and another was carrying a rider, and the way became too narrow for both of them, the rider must move to the side to allow the laden donkey to proceed. If one donkey was laden with a burden and another was burdenless, the burdenless one must move to the side to allow the laden donkey to proceed. If one was carrying a rider and another was burdenless, the burdenless one must move to the side to allow the donkey carrying the rider to proceed. If both are laden with burdens, carrying riders or burdenless, the owner should negotiate a compromise. 12. Similarly, there are criteria laid down when two ships that are passing through the same straits confront each other. And if they both tried to pass at the same time, they would sink. But if they could pass one by one, or when two camels that are climbing a high pass confront each other, and if they both tried to pass at the same time, they would fall. But they could pass one by one. What should they do? If one is carrying cargo and the other one was burdenless, the burdenless one should move to the side in favor of the one that is carrying cargo. If one was close to the port or city from which it set out and one was further removed, the one that is closer should move to the side in favor of the one that was further removed. If they are both far removed, both close, or both laden with cargo, and they both share the same difficulty, they should come to a compromise and reach a final settlement between themselves. With regard to such situations, it is said, Leviticus 19, verse 15, judge your colleague with righteousness. 13. When a person encounters two individuals, one whose donkey is fallen under its load and one with a donkey whose burden has been unloaded, but who cannot find anyone to help him reload it, it is a mitzvah to unload the fallen donkey first, because of the discomfort suffered by the animal. Afterwards, he should reload the other animal. When does this apply above? When two people he encounters are both friends or both enemies. If, however, the one whose donkey must be reloaded is an enemy and the other is a friend, it is a mitzvah for the passerby to reload his enemy's donkey first in order to subjugate his evil inclination. 14. The enemy mentioned in the Torah is not a Gentile, but rather a Jew. One might ask, how is it possible for one Jew to hate another? Is it not written in Leviticus 19:17, do not hate your brother with your heart? Our sages explain that this is referring to a person who alone sees a colleague violate a transgression and rebukes him, but the colleague did not cease transgressing. In such an instance, it is a mitzvah to hate the person until he repents and abandons his wickedness. Even if he didn't, if even if he did not repent yet, if one sees him in a panic because of his cargo, it is a mitzvah to unload and reload with him, instead of leaving him inclined toward death, lest he tarry because of his money and he brought to and be brought to danger. For the Torah showed concern for the lives of the Jewish people, both wicked and the righteous, for they are attached to God and believe in the fundamentals of our faith. And Ezekiel 33, verse 11 states, "Say to them, as I live, says God, the Lord, do I desire the death of the wicked man? I desire that the wicked return from his path and live. Blessed be God who grants assistance. With the help of the Almighty, the 11th book has been completed." The number of chapters in this book are 62.
Awesome.
Okay. I don't pretty much have any questions for this one or comments that I'm aware of.
No, I appreciate it. I wasn't surprised, but when I first started getting interested, the amount of laws that or the amount of times discussed about how you care for your animals, and I think sometimes we might be a little more cruel than we need to be, even though we might be a civilized people. And Torah reminds us to be that way. Another example right here. And before, I appreciate it. I appreciate that about Judaism big time.
Okay. In the side chat. Interesting night.
Yeah. We should really rib Gav next time we see him, We're in your subconscious.
He left.
Oh.
He dropped. Okay. I think that he was having problems the last time because I messaged him.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't hear it. The first few times I did. But he dropped out. Oh.
Okay, maybe we won't rib him.
So I don't know if we leave and the room shuts down or it still continues. I have no idea. I don't know how this works.
If he dropped out, he's got 5 minutes. If we leave, it's gone.
Okay.
So do you want to bid you adieu in the live end?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in. If you've made it this far in the recording, hey, good for you. Thanks.
Have a wonderful Rosh Hashanah, and may everybody be sealed in the book of life.
Amen.
Shavua Tov.
Shabbat shalom, y'all.